On the forgotten fringes of the Dusk Lands, there's a highway that doesn't appear on any map. Locals call it the Unmarked Path. GPS signals die here, replaced by static or phantom towns that don't exist. Daniel Krause was a long-haul trucker, a man running on coffee and deadlines. He'd just taken a lucrative, last-minute job, delivering sealed containers to a remote research facility deep in the dusk. His dispatcher, Mona, sounded nervous. "Stick to the main line," she'd warned. "And whatever you do, don't look at the map in the truck." But life on the road is unpredictable. Exhausted and behind schedule, Daniel was forced off the main highway by a sudden, inexplicable roadblock. The detour led him onto a poorly kept service road that soon merged seamlessly with the unmarked path. The moment his rig crossed over, an unnatural silence fell. The roar of his powerful diesel engine faded to a whisper. Outside, the landscape became a repeating, featureless blur of scrubland. He glanced at his truck's internal mapping system, an old model, a relic. But what he saw wasn't a digital display. It was a physical piece of parchment behind the glass, crudely drawn and hand-annotated. Scrolled across the top in faded ink were two words: the Cartographer. The map itself was terrifyingly simple. It showed his location as a tiny, inked truck icon moving along a thick, red line labeled the path. But the map wasn't static. As he drove, new details appeared on the parchment crossroads, materializing just moments before he reached them, and unsettling landmarks, like the Well of Whispers and the Gantry of Sighs. Daniel's blood ran cold. He wasn't navigating by the map. The map was creating the road ahead of him. He reached for the display, his first instinct to smash it, but the glass was unnaturally cold and thick. It wouldn't break. The parchment behind it began to glow with a faint, malevolent light. He drove for what felt like an eternity, the sun trapped in a perpetual twilight. Then, a rusted sign appeared by the roadside, one he hadn't seen drawn on the map. "Welcome to the Cartographer's domain. You are now a feature." His eyes darted back to the map. A major deviation was forming. A thin, dotted line branched off the main path, leading to a place labeled the Depot of Lost Cargo. The dotted line was faint, but as Daniel's truck passed the exact point on the physical road, a new turn-off one that hadn't been there a second ago suddenly appeared. It was a dark, muddy track leading into a thicket of dead trees. Every instinct screamed at him to stay on the main road, but the thought of defying the map, of driving where the Cartographer hadn't drawn, filled him with a dread he couldn't explain. He felt compelled to obey. He turned the wheel and drove down the track, his tires sinking into the soft mud. He finally reached the depot, a massive, echoing warehouse, lit by a single, sickly yellow lamp hanging from the ceiling. The colossal doors were wide open, an invitation into the gloom. He pulled his rig inside, and the sight that greeted him stopped his heart. The Depot of Lost Cargo was filled, floor to ceiling, with identical, dusty, 18-wheeler cabs. Dozens of them from different decades, different companies. All locked, all empty, all facing the walls like silent, forgotten tombstones. As he stared, frozen in his seat, the map on his dashboard updated. The depot icon flashed a menacing red, and the small truck icon representing his position paused. Then, he watched in absolute horror as a new drawing appeared on the parchment, meticulously penned right next to his truck. It was a faint, featureless, human figure, and beneath it, a new label. The new driver. The truth crashed down on him with the force of a physical blow. The Cartographer wasn't just a map, it was an entity. It lured drivers onto the unmarked path, forcing them to navigate its twisted reality until they became a permanent feature, trading their lives for a new, abandoned truck in this ghostly depot. Daniel was meant to be the next addition to the collection. Adrenaline surged through him. He threw his truck into reverse, the engine screaming as the tires spun wildly in the thick mud. He roared back onto the main line of the path, ignoring the frantic, angry lines now streaking across the map, trying to redirect him, to force him back to the depot. The Cartographer was furious. It began to retaliate. The simple lines on the map started to shake violently, and in perfect sync, the road in front of him began to buckle. Large, sharp ridges of asphalt erupted from the ground, threatening to tear his tires to shreds. He swerved, fighting to keep control. Then, the map displayed a new, terrifying marker far ahead. The infinity loop. As he watched, the red line of the path on the parchment curved back on itself, forming a perfect circle. It looped up, and there it was. The road ahead had become a smooth, continuous, unending loop, with no exit and no escape. He was trapped. But as panic closed in, Daniel noticed a flaw. In its rage, the cartographer had focused all its power on bending the road itself, on creating the perfect prison. It had neglected the space outside the lines. With a desperate roar, Daniel slammed his foot on the accelerator, yanked the wheel hard, and steered his massive truck straight off the asphalt and into the unforgiving, uncharted The moment his tires left the marked surface, the map in his cab went white. The glowing parchment let out a high-pitched shriek of static, then simply evaporated into nothing, leaving the dashboard screen dark and empty. The unnatural silence of the path returned, but this time it felt like freedom. He bounced and crashed across the rough terrain for minutes. It felt like hours, until finally, he saw it in the distance, the faint, blessed glow of genuine street. He eventually found his way back to civilization, physically safe, but forever changed. He quit his job that day and never got behind the wheel of a truck again. The old rig he'd been driving, however, wasn't so lucky. Weeks later, deep in the desolate heart of the Dusklands, a new section of the Unmarked Path appeared on the cartographer's ever-changing parchment. At a new marker, labeled the abandoned rig, sat the ghostly image of a specific truck, its sealed containers still intact. And near the edge of the Dusklands, a new, indelible road sign had been permanently inked into the map, marking the start of that cursed highway. It read, "The path always finds its way back." Thanks for watching! If you enjoyed this story, do not forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more tailies from the dark side of the road. Stay safe out there.